What's up, nerds? I'm Becka Tyler, and welcome back to another episode of Create Your Character. For this cosplay, I figured I'd stick with my roots and become a bee, but not just any bee, no, I'm talking about Bumblebee from the Transformers series. This cosplay took a lot to put together, so I figured I'd have a special guest help me out with it. But enough of my buzz, Autobots, let's roll out. I'm going to start off this episode with a large disclaimer. This cosplay was an absolute roller coaster that did not turn out well in the end, so this has been turned into a list on how not to cosplay. Please learn from my many mistakes. Step 1 to this list is to measure everything. I cannot stress this enough. This is why this is the first step. Make sure you at least do this one, if anything else. Even if you don't think you need to measure something, do it. Already measured something? Do it again. Or else you'll wind up with a giant pile of, well, this. One thing I did wrong during this crucial step was looking at pictures of inspiration on my phone and then blindly going from there. And when I did measure something, it was a very rough estimate using my own body, which isn't good because it will later be applied to Kyle, who was definitely not me. This has very much contributed to why Kyle turned into a sad pile of scrap metal instead of an actual car. Step 2. Make sure you have enough materials. When making this cosplay, I was very conscious of how much cardboard I would be needing, but completely underestimated how much spray paint I would be needing. At one point, I stopped spray painting all of the cardboard, and I only painted the parts that would be seen on the camera. And I still ended up running out. So make sure you take into account how much you need and then add some, because nothing feels worse than making various trips to your local craft store and having the same lady ring up your stuff as you try not to make eye contact with her because now she knows you're terrible at planning things. Step 3. Allow space for mental breakdowns. You aren't a real cosplayer if you haven't experienced at least one moment of almost giving up mid-project. Step 4. Make sure all of your tools work. During this cosplay, I planned on hot gluing all of my pieces together, but for some unknown reason, the glue stick wasn't getting pushed in all the way by the hot glue gun, and the glue came oozing out of the back. I tried to paint on the glue with a paintbrush, but I failed doing that, so the giant clump of glue eventually jammed the glue gun and broke it. So yeah, make sure that all of your materials are in proper working order to prevent a catastrophe. However, even though this is a huge letdown, it does make a nice segue into Step 5. So, Step 5. The show must go on. In this situation, I needed to act fast to see how I was going to stick everything together to make a cohesive cosplay. As a cosplayer, it's really good to know how to MacGyver anything together to make your cosplay work. I decided to use black electrical tape, which got the job done, but in the end, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it looked terrible. But, you know, it stuck everything together. However, this shouldn't be the end goal. Never settle for good enough, which also leads me to my next step. Step 6. Pay attention to detail. Really pay attention to how you're doing things, because people will notice the difference between a solid cosplay and a cosplay with cut corners. This is one thing that I definitely didn't do when creating this cosplay. This very much ties into how I didn't measure well, but I also didn't spray paint evenly, nor did the tape do the cosplay any justice. And the next for Step 7, make sure you have fun. This is probably one of the most important ones behind making sure you measure everything. Cosplaying shouldn't be a chore, even if it is mentally exhausting sometimes. Step 8. Make sure you include all parts of your cosplay. Well, that's all the time I have for this episode. Thank you, Kyle, for being my mannequin for this look. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or want to suggest another cosplay for me to cover, don't be afraid to tweet me at ZTVGoofingOff with the hashtag CreateYourCharacter. Remember, I'm Becka Tyler, and I'll catch you the next time around on Create Your Character.